Time is a thief, Admiral Emma Chenitz thought to herself as she leaned back in her chair and flexed her hands. The report was done. The diplomatic service would just have to be happy with it, because there was no way these hands of hers were going to be able to do any more. Not until lunch, at least. She grimaced as she tried to massage away the pain in her hands, hoping that she would be able to avoid another trip to the medbay, but knowing that she probably wouldn't. "Face it, you're just old," she said, aloud the empty cabin. Not for the first time, she wondered why she had volunteered for this mission. "Go," they said. "Establish diplomatic relations with the great Galactic Imperium. Make sure they're not, swearing vengeance against the Republic for overthrowing their imperial cousins of the great Galactic Empire. Go, ha!" If only had been that simple. The fastest picket ship in the Republic fleet had taken 2 months to get to the wormhole nexus on the very edge of known space, and then, after the transit through the wormhole, it had been the diplomatic dog and pony show for the better part of a year. But now, they had sent someone to pick her up. There was an embassy now, on New Byzantium, with a fully credentialed ambassador. Her mission was complete, and now, at last, she could go home. Alarms began to blare, and she glanced up in irritation. "Alert, alert," a mechanical voice said. "All hands to stations, set condition yellow throughout the ship." "Alert, alert," the message began to repeat. Emma heaved herself to her feet, groaning at the pain in her knees. She grabbed the table for support for a moment before straightening herself up to fasten her uniform jacket. Then, she grabbed her cane and made her way slowly to the door to her quarters. The doors hissed open and she glanced out into the hallway, curious as to what would have tripped the condition yellow. There were people walking briskly to their stations, but no one was rushing. There was no frantic energy in the air. "Maybe it's a drill," Emma thought to herself, and stepped out into the hallway and made her way down the hallway to the bridge. The doors hissed open and, "Charge our phaser banks and get torpedoes loaded in tubes 1 and 2, Captain Van Roke said crisply. "If this ship so much as twitches at me, I'm going to blow it straight to hell, do you understand? We can't—" "What's going on?" Emma asked, raising her voice slightly to be heard over the cacophony of the bridge. The bosun shot to her feet, raising the whistle to announce her, but she waved her away. "At ease, sailor. No need for that. Captain?" A flash of irritation passed over Van Roke's face so quickly she almost missed and had to bite her tongue to keep from smiling. She had been where Van Roke was sitting a time or two over the years, carting around admirals, trying to run your ship as best you could with some crust-bucket old fart second-guessing your every move. She had always hated it when she was a captain, but as an admiral, well, that was just too damn bad. "Admiral Chenitz, I didn't know." "I'm 2 doors down from the bridge, Captain," Emma replied, sounding amused. "I got curious when—" "We went to condition yellow. A new contact coming out of hyperspace." "It's closing fast," the ops officer put in. "Do you have a visual?" Emma asked. "Yes, ma'am," Van Roke said, and gestured to the ops officer, who nodded, and pressed a series of buttons on his console. "I thought defensive measures would be at least prudent." "Belay that," Emma replied, staring past her as the visual of the ship popped up on the view screen. She let out a long, low whistle. "It's been ages since I've seen one of them." "Captain, Tactical is reporting gun ports are primed and ready to open—" "No," Emma said sharply. "Keep them closed." "Admiral," Van Roke said urgently, "if they do have hostile—" Emma stepped forward, leaning heavily on her cane until she was close enough so that only Van Roke could hear her. "Captain," she said quietly, "I don't want to Bigfoot you on your own bridge. So, please, stand down." Van Roke met her eyes for a long moment before she finally nodded. "Tell Tactical to stand down," she ordered, "and stand us down from condition yellow." "Thank you, Captain," Emma said, raising her voice to a normal speaking level. "With your permission, I'd like channel open, audio only." "So ordered," Van Roke said. The comms officer turned. "Channel is open, Admiral." Emma took a deep breath and then spoke in a language that none of them recognized, taking care to enunciate each word and speak as clearly as possible. There was a long pause, and then, "Privetstvuju vas I vash klan voin Chenitz." Emma smiled at that. "Bezopasnik puteshestvi I udachnoi okoti," she replied. Silence. Then, in heavily accented galactic standard, to you as well. Then, the channel cut off. There was a stunned silence on the bridge until Emma chuckled and, turning away from the view screen, made her way back towards the bridge doors. Well, that's enough excitement for today. Admiral, Van Roke said, sinking back into her chair. What? Were they? And did they know your name? Chenitz turned, a look of surprise on her face. You mean you didn't know? Ursus Astra, that there, sailors, she nodded toward the view screen, was a genuine ship of the Star Bears of Polskaya. But the Star Bears are a myth, the comms officer protested. You want to call them back and tell them that? Emma grinned as the comms officer shook her head vigorously. Didn't think so. She kept walking and was almost to the bridge doors when Van Roke asked again, But Admiral, you still haven't told us how they knew your name? Oh, that. Chenitz didn't turn around. That's a long story, Captain. When Emma Chenitz dreamed these days, it was often of Daruja, the great citadel where the Emperor's viceroy held sway over the planet. Fire in the sky as their airships pounded the Imperial positions from above. The ion defense shields blazing with green light as they tried to absorb as much power as they could. Behind her were Amira with her laser rifle X-50, their battle droid, and Maxon in his red cloak, swinging his laser axe with deadly precision. Her eyes blazed with fire as she pointed up towards the palace. Revenge would be hers, Daruja would be free, and she would... Chenitz! Her eyes snapped open and she started as she saw the grizzled face of Commander Dennison above her. Up and at 'em, soldier, Dennison growled. You've got the first watch. Yes, sir, Chenitz said. Dennison ducked out of the tent, and she heard him start waking the others in the adjacent tents. Emma stretched to the left and the right, and then, with a groan, placed her hands on her knees and pushed herself upright. Before she slipped her boots on, she smoothed out her uniform trousers and adjusted the jacket, lifting her arms to give an experimental sniff. She wrinkled her nose in distaste. It was time for a shower. Even a sonic one would do. But Dennison had them all sleeping rough on this mission, whatever it was. She slipped on her boots, tapping the boot heel onto the ground to activate the fasteners. With a sigh, she slung her rifle over her shoulder and pushed the tent flap open and stepped out into the early morning mist. You're not in Daruja anymore, Emma whispered to herself. Knowles and Mazer emerged from their tents, Dennison following. Mazer out. Chenitz! Dennison barked. Get across the bridge and up to where that creek empties out into the river. Mazer, you head that way. He pointed in the opposite direction. And find a place to keep watch. You two are our sentries. What about us, Commander? Knowles asked. You and Mazer stay here at the bridge. You'll take second watch, Dennison said. Chenitz, Mazer. You let me know if anyone approaches to make contact. I'll be on the shuttle. She slipped on her boots, tapping the boot heel onto the ground to activate the fasteners. With a sigh, she slung her rifle over her shoulder and pushed the tent flap open and stepped out into the early morning mist. A nature of their mission here. That, more than anything, was probably the fuel of her anger. The galaxy was in turmoil as the Civil War raged. The Empire seemed to be losing 1 week, winning the next. Everything seemed to be trapped in an endless cycle of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. She was the liberator of Daruja, and maybe she had been foolish to think that actually meant something, but she had. A uniform had never been part of her plan. Politics on Daruja, before the Empire had come, were rotting the entire planet from the inside out. Petty politics and pettier ideologies and the constant fighting that obscured from the citizens the fact that their sorry excuse for a government never got anything done. The Imperial conquest had been lightning fast, and all she had wanted was to be left alone. But the Emperor's shock troops had different plans, and after she had buried her mother, father, and 2 sisters, she had braided her long red hair, said a puja to the gods, and burned down her house. Then she had gotten a shuttle off planet to rebel-held space and joined up, never once looking back, until today. Reaching her destination, she found a spot near the edge of the creek and sat down, crossed-legged in the short grass, rifle across her lap. It was the lack of color, she decided as she looked around. It felt like this planet was heading towards winter, so slowly with every passing day, color was draining out of the landscape. The grasses were becoming beige and brown. The trees were either evergreens that she didn't think would lose their leaves or in the process of shedding them already. Looking back down the creek, she could see Knowles and Mazer on the bridge. Mazer was raising what looked like a fishing pole above his head, and Emma had to smile. Mazer was always talking about how much he loved to fish, and now he was going to actually get to try his luck here. Whether there were any fish in the river was another question entirely, but Mazer didn't care. All he wanted to do was fish. A part of Emma envied him for that. She was tired. She didn't have anything else in her, except for the struggle, and even that seemed like it was going to end in failure. Their shuttle, though functional, sat on squat legs, an obsidian black hulk against the forest. It didn't look like it was in any shape to fly, and maybe that's why she felt so tired. They were crippled renegades, alone in a forest on a planet, for some sanctified mission from high command that she... The sound of the stick breaking made her glance up, and that's when she saw the bear. It was young, not much older than a cub, and as soon as it saw her, it froze as well. And that's when she saw the pack attached to its back, and then their eyes met, and she was shocked when she saw intelligence staring back at her. "Peep, peep, peep, please, Two Legs, will you help me?" Emma scrambled upright, grip tightening on her rifle. "Two Legs," the bear said in broken galactic standard. "I mean you no harm. I am Poslenik. I bring information," the bear pronounced every syllable of the last word very carefully. "Oh, you're a messenger?" Emma asked. Yes, Two Legs," the bear replied. "That is the word." Emma turned and waved to attract Mazer's attention. She grinned because Mazer was wrestling with his makeshift fishing pole, trying to reel something in. Knowles saw her, though, and she turned to point at the bear. She cupped her hands and called, "Let Commander Dennison know and get me a med kit." Knowles nodded and began walking back towards the shuttle. Emma turned back to the bear. "How badly are you hurt?" The bear, grimacing, held up a paw, and she could see that it was mangled badly and still bleeding. She hissed in sympathy. "That looks nasty. What did it?" "A trap," the bear growled. Then shockingly it whimpered. "My mother, she freed me before the hunters came." Emma couldn't help but feel a rush of sympathy for the bear. She slung her rifle across her back and moved down the creek a little bit to a point she thought was narrow enough to jump across. She eyed it for a moment, hoping she wasn't misjudging the distance, and then she jumped across. She landed awkwardly, nearly losing her balance, but recovered and scrambled up the opposite bank to reach the bear. She knelt down beside it. "I'm Emma," she said. "Emma Chenitz. Can I..." She gestured at the injured paw. The bear held it up gingerly, and she very gently took it into her hand and examined it. "There doesn't look to be anything stuck in there. When my friend gets here, we will be able to do more, but now..." She reached into pocket of her jacket and pulled open the simple med kit she carried. "This might sting a little, but it should help clean it out some until we can get a bandage on it." I'm strong, Two Legs," the bear replied. "Do what you need to do." Emma took a deep breath and pulled out the packet of med powder. She tore the packet open and, taking the injured paw in her hand, sprinkled the powder liberally across the wounds. The bear flinched but held firm and met her eyes without blinking. "Thank you, Voin Chenitz. You will be richly rewarded for helping me." Admiral Chenitz shrugged. "And you know what? That bear was telling the truth. Commander Dennison's mission was to make contact with the Star Bears and see if they would join the Alliance." "And did they?" Van Roke asked, breaking the respectful silence on the bridge. "They sure did, and then some," Admiral Chenitz grinned. "Anyone do military history seminar with Professor Ditaxa?" The comms officer raised her hand. "What turned the tide in the final battle of Vega Prime?" Chenitz asked, still grinning. "A fleet of dreadnoughts," the comms officer said. "It was unclear where they came from or why they came, but they proved decisive." "Ursus Astra," Chenitz finished. "They came when the Republic needed them. So, remember, sailors, The good Lord has a special providence for fools, drunkards, and people who are kind to bears. Amazing new story. Enjoy it. Dora Moore Stormcleaver reined in her horse and dismounted as she caught sight of their destination at the end of the road. It had been a long ride through the great city of Melantia, the greatest and most populous city in the known world. Finally, Farnat said, dismounting as well. That's it, Theodoric rumbled. Doesn't look like much. Appearances can be deceiving, Dora replied. She reached behind her and made sure her battle axe was in place. She smoothed out her beard and made sure her purse was secure, and then looked at the other two. Ready? If I must be, sighed Farnats, gripping his staff a little more tightly. Do we really have to go in here? You know this is the best place to find what we need. Their destination was a low-slung building perched on the edge of the water. There was no rhyme or reason to its architecture, as over the years, the original building had been added onto, demolished, burnt down a few times, and rebuilt all over again. A sign above its well-lit entrance creaked gently in the wind. As they got closer, a couple of stable hands came running up. You need stables for your horses? Do you have room for them? Dora asked. Of course we do. The first stable hand bowed deeply. Whatever you need. For a nominal fee, I'm sure, Farnat said dryly. Of course, the second stable hand said. Nothing is free here. Dora unhooked her purse, and after digging around in it, pulled out 2 coins and pressed them into their outstretched hands. Their eyes went wide as saucers. Are these dwarfish silver? Aye, Dora replied. 2 silver marks. You take good care of our horses, and there might be 2 more for you as well when we're done. They both glanced at each other in awe. It shall be as you say, ma'am. It better be, Dora growled. But she handed over the reins of her horse to the stable hand, and Farnats did as well. Theodoric hesitated. My horse, you take care of it. Yes, sir, the second stable hand said. Be careful, he bites, Theodoric warned, but he too handed the reins of his horse over. The stable hands led them away, and the 3 of them were left staring at the entrance to the tavern. Dora set her shoulders. All right, keep a tight grip on your coin, don't start fights, and remember to duck. Duck? Theodoric asked, confused. What is duck? They throw things here, Farnats explained wearily. It can get a bit rowdy. Glasses, chairs, tables, axes, Dora said. It's fun. You and I, Dora, have very different definitions of fun, Farnats replied, but he fell in behind Dora as they walked up to the entrance and stepped across the threshold. From her perch in the far corner of the tavern, Shalina watched the newcomers step through the entrance. The noise level dropped as heads swiveled to eye up the newcomers and see who they were, but a dwarf, a ruffian, and a ragged-looking man in a brown robe were not deemed worthy of anyone's attention, so the noise level returned to its usual level of chaos almost immediately. Dora, you wench! The tavern keeper, a vast mountain of a man called Andronikos, bellowed a greeting to the newcomer who winced in recognition. The last time you were here, you ran out on your tab. Aye, after I found out you were watering down the mead, you swindler, the dwarf, who, as Shalina looked more closely at was, in fact, a female, bellowed back at him. You mean, after that Botuk found out you were bedding his wife? Andronikos passed off an empty tray to one of his serving girls and bustled back up to the newcomers, slapping Dora on the back and greeting her friends. As he did so, she saw the dwarf's cloak shift a little bit, and her eyes caught sight of the purse. She hadn't seen a purse that full in days, and, are you really going to do this again? This is how low you've sunk? You, a princess of Cormant, and... I will do what I must, Shalina whispered to herself. Cormant was months behind her now, and it seemed like a lifetime ago. She had been so foolish, so naive to think that his journey would have been easy. Her father had insisted on sending 2 of his best knights with her and his vizier. Dina had sent along the best of her spies. All were dead now. Ser Durtax had been thrown from his horse in the forest of Genta on the frontier between Burgovia and Gelamania. Dina's spies had tried to sell her out to the Duke of Felgandy and Sir Bedivere. Faithful, chaste, honorable Sir Bedivere had been anything but. His intentions had been made clear near the borders of Vascadora. Shalina had escaped, with her honor intact, and Bedivere had received a knife in his belly for his troubles. The following weeks had been the hardest of Shalina's life. She had spent too many nights hiding in bushes and too many days with an empty belly. She had crept into Vascadora looking more like a drowned, bedraggled rat than a princess. It was by sheer happenstance that a Cormanti wife of a Vascadoran merchant had recognized her in the market, swooped down on her, fed her, cleaned her up, and got her passage to Melantia, but it had all been too good to be true. The money had run out, food was scarce, hunger gnawed at her belly, and she was no closer to getting where she needed to go. Andronikos was gesturing for the newcomers to sit at a nearby table and pulled a chair over to sit with them. He and Dora were chatting away, if not old friends, then certainly not enemies at the moment, as one could never be entirely too sure in this place. Shalina glanced around the room, planning every move. The dwarf's height would make it difficult to pull off, but that purse, it could be enough. If it was, then maybe she could find what she was looking for and get out of here. At the very least, it meant she would be able to buy some food to eat. Shalina felt despair fill her. She was stuck here no matter what. She didn't have the money to book passage home to Cormant, and even if she did, returning home empty-handed, facing her brothers and probably burying her father and the blight still ravaging their kingdom, there was no other choice. She was Shalina din Tessitare, Princess Royal of the Kingdom of Cormant, and she was going to save her people. "I will do what I must," she whispered. Then she pulled her hood up and hopped down from her perch. "So," Andronikos rumbled as he leaned back on his stool, "you still haven't told me what you are doing back here, Dora? Did you miss the Emperor's cloak that much?" Dora nodded in thanks as a serving girl set down a foaming mug of ale in front of her and placed two others in front of Theodoric and Farnats before bustling away. She raised her tankard in salute before taking a long pull and grimacing in distaste. "Well, you still haven't learned how to brew proper ale." "My ale tastes fine. It's just not dwarfish." Andronikos shrugged. "I have question," Theodoric interjected. "Why do you call this place the Emperor's Cloak? I thought you had sultans now." "We do," Andronikos replied. "May he reign forever." It is an old story that goes back to when the Osmani cannons breached Stonehammer's wall. They say the last emperor of Melantium, Paleagus, cast off the purple and went to fight and die with his soldiers as one of them. After the battle was over and the Osmanis had taken the city, they found his cloak snagged on a spear, blowing in the breeze right here where this tavern sits. "And his body was never found," Dora added in a derisive sing-song tone. "So, he'll come again?" Theodoric said. "Like our ancient king, Wulfgar the Savage?" "Something like that," Farnats replied. "But your dwarfish friend remains." "Elusive as ever," Andronikos said. "If you dance to music half as well as you dance around questions." He left it hanging, and Dora took another long pull from her tankard before answering him. "Where's the Elvish quarter these days?" Andronikos stiffened immediately. "No. Impossible. I will not." "Nikos, you know everything," Dora protested. "It's been nearly a century since the Osmanis took over. They can't have maintained their silence for this long." "You don't understand, Dora," Andronikos said. "Even if I could tell you for sure, you won't find them unless they want to be found. Every year, the Sultan's Jazzerias, his tax collectors, go to the Moongate door in the night market of the Golden Horn on the appointed night, and there they receive the taxes from the Elvish quarter. They keep to themselves now. They don't trade with Outlanders. Don't talk to Outlanders. If you go in there and you don't speak Elvish or they think you are up to no good," he shrugged, as if that explained everything. "I would like to see them try to kill me," Theodoric said. "You don't understand, big man," Andronikos replied. "It is not death, necessarily, though plenty of people who have gone in without permission have never been heard from again. No, if you find a secret they don't want you to have, they will take your mind." "Even better," Theodoric raised his glass in salute. "My mother always said I was thick as two short planks anyway. Not much mind up here," he tapped his head, "for them to take." "Ironically, that's not the worst idea in the world," Farnats muttered. "But it does pose a problem, Dora. My high Elvish is shit. If you don't speak High Elvish, they won't talk to you, Andronikos said. But you know everything, Nikos, Dora said, shifting slightly as someone passing by bumped into her. You can find me someone who can speak High Elvish, and you can tell me when the Elvish quarter is. No, it's impossible. The only place anyone knows is the Moon Gate door in the night market. Nikos, Dora said, I know how big my tab is. You help us out. This I've heard before, Andronikos scoffed. Show me the color of your money. Dora reached down for her purse and then froze. It was gone. Her entire purse had just vanished, and she bit off a vicious, dwarvish curse and shot to her feet. Dora, what? Farnat sounded confused. My purse, Dora snarled. Turning to look around the room, not there. It's gone. Someone just bumped into me and... Not there. She turned again. It's gone, and... She saw a small hooded figure weaving in and around the tables headed towards the back of the tavern. There, thief! She bellowed, leaping up onto the table, sending the tankard of ale flying and pointing. Stop, thief! The hooded figure froze for a moment, shot a glance backward, and began to run. With a vicious grin, Dora jumped down from the table and plunged after her. The hooded figure had a head start on her, but Dora resembled an angry boulder going downhill at increasing speed. You've got my purse, thief! She roared as she dodged a waitress. She could hear Theodoric, and Farnat's behind her but kept her eyes squarely on her quarry. Dora slammed into someone's knees and, spitting out curses, went sprawling on top of them. There was a frantic collision of limbs and flesh, and she heard angry cursing and what sounded like Philistani before she pried herself loose. Just in time to see the thief crash through the swinging door that led to the kitchens. With another bellow, Dora followed. The kitchens were a mad symphony of noise and chaos, and the fleeing thief only added to it, causing dishes to be dropped, serving girls to flee with shrieks of terror, and the cook to bellow a stream of curse, words at their passage into her domain. Then, through the kitchen, the thief crashed through another door and into the darkness of the storerooms beyond. Dora's smile grew as she realized that she was gaining on the thief, who had lost a step or two in the chaos of the kitchens. Run, little rabbit, run! Dora roared. There might be a turn at the far end of the storerooms, or maybe stairs, into a cellar she didn't know about, but with shelves lining either side of the narrow passageway, there would either be an exit or a dead end for the thief. Unfortunately, the thief must have realized that as well, because with a glance back, seeing that Dora was gaining on her, lowered their shoulder and drove it into a nearby shelf, causing it to rock in a bag and slip off the shelf and, quick. As a flash, Dora slipped her axe out and slashed upward with it. The bag exploded into a white cloud of flour and Dora kept running. Desperate now, the thief tried again and again, but Dora kept swinging her axe, smashing aside jars, crockery, blankets, anything, and soon enough, the thief ran out of the store room and had to stop and frantically scrabble with the latch of the heavy door at the far end of the storeroom, and those few seconds were all Dora needed. As the thief figured out the latch and began to lift it to open the door, Dora flung herself at the thief, crashing into them and tumbling out into the alleyway beyond. There was a blur of chaos as the thief and dwarf found themselves tangled together. Dora heard a grunt as her fist caught the thief in the side, but then she was sent reeling back at a sharp blow to her chest and then sprung apart. "Give me my purse back, you scoundrel!" Dora bellowed. She started forward, intent on seizing the hooded figure by the scruff of the neck and dispensing justice herself when, at a speed she hadn't thought possible, the thief moved. Suddenly, Dora found herself flat on her back staring at the sky, her dwarven helm ringing with the impact on the cobbles. Laying there dazed for half a second was all the thief needed to dart past her. Dora tried to grab the thief, but they were too quick, so with a groan she rolled over and hauled herself to her feet, spitting out curses in Dwarvish. She hated this festering, chaotic nightmare of a city. She hated how easily her purse had been lifted. She hated thieves, and most of all, because she was a dwarf and not a human or an elf with their ridiculously long legs, the one thing she hated more than anything in the world was running. Getting to her feet, still spitting out curses, straightening her helmet and picking up her axe, she looked up and burst out laughing. For all their cleverness, the thief had been undone by pure chance and had run smack dab into Theodoric, who was holding the thief a couple of feet off the ground by the scruff of their shirt. "This is your thief, no?" Theodoric asked.